The 1970s opened with a bang, the final furious gasp of America's horsepower war. Before emissions strangled engines and insurance premiums buried dreams, Detroit unleashed machines so brutal, so absurdly powerful, that actuaries wept and underwriters ran for cover. These weren't just fast cars. They were financial liabilities with four wheels, street-legal dragsters that could bankrupt young drivers before the first payment cleared. Today, we're counting down 12 insane 1970s muscle cars that insurance companies absolutely hated. Machines that rewrote the rules, shattered quarter-mile records, and reminded everyone why this era remains untouchable. Number 12, 1971, Mercury Cougar GT 429, Cobra Jet. Mercury wanted respect in the muscle car wars, and the Cougar GT answered that call with class and fury. While Ford's Mustangs grabbed headlines, Mercury's luxury pony car packed the same devastating 429 cubic inch Cobra Jet V8 under a more sophisticated wrapper. This wasn't some stripped-down drag special. This was a gentleman's bruiser that could embarrass Camaros at stoplights and still pamper you with bucket seats and wood grain trim. The Cobra Jet 429 displaced 7.0 liters of pure aggression. Rated at 370 horsepower, the engine delivered massive low-end torque that transformed boulevard cruising into a tire-smoking spectacle. Mated to a 4-speed manual transmission, the Cougar GT could blast through the quarter mile in roughly 14.1 seconds, respectable numbers that put it squarely in Mopar territory. Insurance companies flagged the Cougar GT immediately. The 429 designation alone triggered premium hikes. Young buyers faced rates that often doubled or tripled standard coverage, with some companies refusing to write policies altogether. The Cobra Jet badge wasn't just a performance indicator. It was a warning label that told insurers this Mercury meant business. What made the Cougar special was its split personality. From the outside, it looked almost refined with hideaway headlights, a formal roofline, and Mercury's trademark vertical grille. But underneath lurked the same Cleveland-built big block that powered Boss Mustangs and Torino race cars. Twist the key and that sophistication vanished in a wall of exhaust sound and tire smoke. Only a handful of buyers checked the GT box, with the 429 option in 1971. By then, the muscle car era was fading fast, choked by new regulations and skyrocketing insurance costs. Those who did got one of the last true performance Mercurys before the brand retreated into badge-engineered mediocrity. Today, a genuine 429 Cougar GT is rarer than most people realize. A forgotten warrior from Mercury's brief moment of muscle car glory. Number 11, 1970, Ford Torino Cobra 429, Super Cobra Jet. Ford's Torino Cobra looked like it rolled straight off Talladega's banking and onto Main Street. With its aggressive fastback profile, blacked-out grille, and functional NACA-style hood scoops, the Cobra projected pure menace. This wasn't a car, it was a statement, a rolling middle finger to anyone who thought Ford had gone soft. Beneath that menacing hood sat the Super Cobra Jet 429, a drag-strip-ready monster rated at 375 horsepower. But those numbers told only half the story. Ford's engineers fortified the SCJ with stronger internals, oil coolers, and beefier connecting rods designed to survive repeated launches at 6,000 RPM. This engine wasn't meant for cruising. It was built for punishment. With a 4-speed manual and Detroit locker rear end, the Torino Cobra could rip through the quarter mile in roughly 14 flat. Trap speeds hovered around 100 miles per hour, numbers that put the Cobra ahead of most street cars, and dangerously close to purpose-built race machines. On the street, traction was the enemy. Those narrow bias-ply tires couldn't handle the torque, turning every green light into a smoky spectacle. Insurance companies knew exactly what the Super Cobra Jet meant. This wasn't a commuter car with a sporty badge. This was Ford's factory hot rod, purpose-built for drag racing and barely civilized for street use. Premiums reflected that reality. Young drivers faced astronomical rates, and many simply gave up, opting for tamer rides they could actually afford to insure. The Torino Cobra's styling separated it from garden-variety Torinos. Flat black hood treatment, bold C-stripes, and rear window louvers gave it a race-ready appearance that wasn't just cosmetic. This car looked fast sitting still, and insurance underwriters noticed. Every visual cue screamed performance, and every performance cue screamed risk. Production numbers stayed low for 1970. Ford built fewer than 8,000 Torino Cobras, and only a fraction came with the Super Cobra jet. Most buyers balked at the insurance premiums or opted for the standard $429 to save money. Those who went all in got one of the meanest Fords ever built, a drag strip warrior that defined Ford's final assault on the muscle car summit. Number 10, 1971, AMC Javelin AMX 401. American Motors entered the muscle car wars as the scrappy underdog, and the Javelin AMX proved that David could punch above his weight. While GM, Ford, and Chrysler dominated headlines, AMC quietly built one of the most underrated performance cars of the era. The Javelin AMX combined sharp handling, distinctive styling, and genuine muscle in a package that flew under most enthusiasts' radar, but not insurance companies. The 401 cubic inch V8 represented AMC's biggest punch. Rated at 330 horsepower, it delivered the kind of low-end torque that made the Javelin feel stronger than its numbers suggested. AMC conservatively rated their engines, meaning real-world output likely exceeded factory claims. Paired with a 4-speed manual and a limited slip differential, the Javelin AMX could blast through the quarter mile in roughly 14.2 seconds at 98 miles per hour. What made the Javelin special was its handling. While most muscle cars wallowed through corners like beached whales, AMC engineers dialed in a suspension that actually worked. Shorter wheelbase, lower weight, and better balance meant the Javelin could embarrass Camaros and Challengers on twisty roads. This wasn't just a drag strip hero. This was a complete performance car. Insurance companies didn't care about handling finesse. They saw the AMX badge, the 401 displacement, and the aggressive styling, and they reacted accordingly. Young buyers faced premium hikes that often exceeded payments on the car itself. Some insurers refused AMC performance models entirely, citing their rarity and the difficulty sourcing parts after crashes. Styling set the Javelin apart from Detroit's mainstream offerings. Its long hood, short deck proportions looked European, almost Corvette-like. Bold graphics, including the iconic red, white, and blue AMX striping, made the car instantly recognizable. This wasn't another generic GM A-body. This was something different, something special. Sadly, AMC's limited marketing budget meant the Javelin never achieved the recognition it deserved. Production stayed low, sales suffered, and by 1974, the AMX nameplate had faded into history. Today, the 1971 Javelin AMX 401 remains one of the most overlooked muscle cars, a genuine performance bargain that insurance companies feared just as much as they did the big-name competition. Number 9, 1971, Dodge Charger Super B 446 pack. Dodge's Super B represented working-class muscle, raw performance without the luxury markup. When Dodge dropped the 446 pack into the Charger Super B, they created a street fighter that combined Mopar's legendary triple carburetor setup with one of the meanest-looking bodies Detroit ever produced. Insurance companies took one look at the specifications and immediately raised rates. This wasn't a car, it was a liability waiting to happen. The 446 pack displaced 7.2 liters and breathed through 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors. Rated at 385 horsepower, the engine produced 590 pound-feet of torque, enough to overwhelm tires, transmissions, and common sense. The triple carb setup wasn't just for show. The center carburetor handled cruising duties, while the outboard carbs kicked in under hard acceleration, delivering a progressive power hit that felt like controlled explosions. With a 4-speed manual and SureGrip differential, the Super B could run the quarter mile in roughly 14 flat. Trap speeds hovered around 102 miles per hour, numbers that embarrassed cars costing twice as much. On the street, the Super B was pure intimidation. That aggressive Charger body, functional hood scoop, and deep exhaust note announced intentions long before the light turned green. Insurance companies hated the 6-pack designation. Those 3 carburetors represented engineering overkill, purpose-built performance that served no practical purpose beyond going dangerously fast. Premiums reflected that reality, with young drivers facing rates that often exceeded $500 annually, astronomical money in 1971. What made the Super B special was its no-nonsense approach. Dodge stripped away unnecessary luxuries, keeping prices down and performance up. You got vinyl bench seats, rubber floor mats, and a dashboard that looked borrowed from a work truck. But you also got one of the fastest Mopars money could buy, a street-legal drag car that cost less than a loaded Roadrunner. Production stayed limited for 1971. Dodge built fewer than 5,000 Super Bs, and only a fraction came with the six-pack. Most buyers opted for the standard 440 or chose different models entirely, scared off by insurance costs. Those who pulled the trigger got one of the last great Mopar muscle cars, a brutal, honest machine that represented everything insurance companies feared. Number 8, 1971, Plymouth GTX 4, 46-pack. Plymouth's GTX occupied the upscale end of Mopar muscle, offering luxury and performance in equal measure. When Plymouth added the 446-pack option, they created something special, a gentleman's hot rod that could humiliate Corvettes while pampering passengers with premium trim. Insurance companies didn't care about leather seats or wood grain accents. They saw the six-pack badge and immediately flagged the GTX as high risk. The 440 displaced 7.2 liters and featured the same legendary triple carburetor setup as its Dodge siblings. 385 horsepower flowed through a 4-speed manual or heavy-duty torque flight automatic. The GTX could blast through the quarter mile in roughly 14.1 seconds at 103 miles per hour. What separated the GTX from cheaper Mopars was its refinement. Plymouth included features like upgraded interiors, better sound deadening, and more chrome trim. This wasn't a stripped-down street racer. This was a car you could actually live with, a daily driver that just happened to run mid-13s at the drag strip. The six-pack setup delivered unique driving characteristics. Under light throttle, only the center carburetor opened, providing docile street manners and acceptable fuel economy. But Matt the accelerator and the outboard carbs opened progressively, unleashing a tsunami of torque that transformed the GTX into a tire-smoking monster. That duality made the car livable and lethal in equal measure. Insurance companies viewed the GTX six-pack as a double threat. The performance matched pure race cars, but the luxury appointments meant higher repair costs after inevitable crashes. Young drivers faced premium increases of 100% or more, with some carriers refusing coverage entirely. The GTX badge represented established performance heritage, and the six-pack setup amplified that risk exponentially. 1971 marked the GTX's swan song year. Emissions regulations and insurance pressures forced Plymouth to detune engines and eliminate high-performance options. The six-pack disappeared after 71, taking with it one of Mopar's most distinctive setups. Today, a genuine GTX 4 46-pack represents one of the last true muscle cars, a luxurious bruiser that combined comfort with crushing straight-line performance. Number 7, 1970, Plymouth Superbird, 426, Hemi. Some cars transcend muscle and become legend. The Plymouth Superbird represents that rare intersection of motorsports homologation, aerodynamic innovation, and raw performance. Built to dominate NASCAR and lure Richard Petty back to Plymouth, the Superbird featured that impossible-to-miss nose cone and towering rear wing. Insurance companies took one look and ran for cover. This wasn't a car. This was a rolling NASCAR billboard that just happened to be street legal. Only 135 Superbirds received the legendary 426 Hemi engine. Those dual Carter 4-barrel carburetors fed 7 liters of hemispherical fury, officially rated at 425 horsepower, but making far more in reality. With a 4-speed manual transmission, the Hemi Superbird could blast through the quarter mile in roughly 13.5 seconds at 105 miles per hour, numbers that matched purpose-built race cars. Insurance companies hated everything about the Superbird. That nose cone and wing weren't just styling exercises. They reduced drag coefficient to 0.28, levels modern cars struggle to achieve. NASCAR proved the design worked when Superbirds broke 200 miles per hour at Talladega. That racing success translated directly to insurance risk. This car could reach speeds that terrified actuaries. Production stayed deliberately limited. Plymouth built 1,935 Superbirds total to meet NASCAR homologation requirements. Most received the 440 Super Commando engine to keep costs down. The 135 Hemi examples represented the absolute pinnacle, race cars with license plates that dominated everything they encountered. Today, a genuine Hemi Superbird commands seven-figure auction prices. These are museum pieces, automotive art that represents America's brief moment of aerodynamic insanity. Insurance companies were right to fear them. These weren't safe, practical transportation. They were weapons, beautiful, brutal, utterly impractical weapons that defined an era. Number 6, 1970, Oldsmobile 442 W30. Oldsmobile doesn't get enough credit in muscle car conversations, but the 442 W30 earned its place among Detroit's elite. While Chevrolet, Pontiac, and Chrysler fought for headlines, Oldsmobile quietly built one of the most complete performance packages of the era. The W30 represented Oldsmobile's top-tier offering, a factory hot rod that combined luxury car refinement with drag strip credentials. Insurance companies noticed immediately. The W30 package centered around Oldsmobile's 455 cubic inch rocket V8. Rated conservatively at 370 horsepower, the engine produced 500 pound-feet of torque at just 3,000 RPM, earth-moving numbers that gave the 442 devastating low-end punch. Oldsmobile fortified the W30 with special cylinder heads, a hotter camshaft, low-restriction exhaust, and functional ram air induction fed by that distinctive fiberglass hood with twin scoops. With a 4-speed manual and posi-traction rear end, the W30 could thunder through the quarter mile in roughly 14 flat at 102 miles per hour. But what impressed testers was the car's composure. While many muscle cars felt crude and unrefined, the Oldsmobile handled with surprising grace. Better suspension tuning and superior weight distribution meant the 442 could actually navigate corners without drama. Insurance companies flagged the W30 designation immediately. That red plastic inner fender treatment, functional hood scoops, and aggressive appearance shouted performance. The 455 displacement raised premiums automatically, and the W30's reputation as Oldsmobile's ultimate street weapon ensured young drivers faced massive rate increases. Underwriters viewed the W30 as a hidden threat, a luxury car that performed like a race car. The functional ram air induction system meant this wasn't cosmetic. It was purposeful engineering designed for maximum performance. Young buyers often saw their insurance quotes double or triple compared to standard Cutlass models. Some carriers simply refused to write policies on W30-equipped cars, citing the combination of high performance and inexperienced drivers as unacceptable risk. The fiberglass hood alone raised red flags, indicating serious performance intentions rather than mere appearance upgrades. Oldsmobile's marketing emphasized the car's quarter-mile capabilities, which only reinforced insurance companies' concerns about street racing and reckless driving. The W30 badge became synonymous with speed in insurance databases, triggering automatic premium increases across multiple carriers. Many potential buyers were forced to choose between their dream car and financial reality. Parents co-signing loans discovered their own insurance rates, climbing simply by association with the vehicle. The W30's insurance legacy ultimately limited its sales numbers, as countless enthusiasts simply couldn't afford the monthly premiums that accompanied ownership. What separated the 442 from cheaper muscle was its completeness. Oldsmobile included heavy-duty everything: brakes, suspension, driveline components, creating a car that felt engineered rather than cobbled together. The interior offered more luxury than most competitors, with better materials and superior build quality. This was muscle with manners, performance with polish. Production stayed limited for 1970. Oldsmobile built roughly 19,000 442s total, but only about 1,000 came with the W30 package. The combination of high price, expensive insurance, and Oldsmobile's luxury image kept numbers low. Today, a genuine W3442 represents one of the most undervalued muscle cars, a sophisticated performer that delivered everything insurance companies feared. Number 5, 1970, Pontiac GTO Judge, Ram Air 4. Pontiac's GTO defined the muscle car movement, and by 1970, the formula had reached perfection. The Judge package added outrageous graphics and functional aerodynamics to an already proven platform. But when buyers specified the Ram Air 4 option, they transformed the car into something transcendent. Insurance companies understood the implications immediately. This wasn't transportation. This was a four-wheeled insurance claim waiting to happen. The Ram Air 400 cubic inch V8 represented Pontiac engineering at its finest. Those round port aluminum heads flowed massive air, while a mechanical lifter camshaft kept valves dancing at RPM levels that shocked competitors. Rated at 370 horsepower, the engine made power everywhere, from 2,000 RPM to well past 6,000. Paired with a close ratio 4-speed manual and steep gearing, the Ram Air 4 Judge could annihilate the quarter mile in roughly 14 seconds flat. What made this engine special was its character. Unlike torque-heavy big blocks that peaked early, the Ram Air 4 built power progressively, rewarding drivers who kept it on the boil. Short shift at 5,000 and you'd post decent times. Hold each gear to redline and the car transformed, pulling harder as RPM climbed. This was thinking man's muscle, performance that rewarded skill. Insurance companies viewed the Judge Ram Air 4 as maximum risk. The psychedelic graphics advertised the car's performance credentials from blocks away. The Ram Air 4 designation signaled race-bred hardware. Combined with Pontiac's performance reputation, insurers had no choice but to raise premiums dramatically. Young buyers often faced rates exceeding their monthly car payments. Styling made the Judge impossible to ignore. Bold orbit orange paint, standard, not optional. Insured visibility. Huge The Judge decals wrapped the body, while a functional rear spoiler and blacked-out grille added aggression. This car didn't apologize for its purpose. It announced its intentions proudly. Consequences be damned. Production stayed deliberately limited. Pontiac built only 768 Ram Air 4 GTOs in 1970, split between standard GTOs and Judges. Each one cost serious money. The Ram Air 4 commanded a steep premium over the standard GTO, and insurance nearly doubled that expense. Those who could afford it got one of the finest Pontiacs ever built, a muscle car that balanced performance, style, and engineering excellence. Number 4, 1970, Buick GSX Stage 1. Buick built luxury cars, not muscle cars. Everyone knew that. Everyone was wrong. The 1970 GSX Stage 1 shattered every preconception about Buick, delivering performance that embarrassed Hemis while maintaining the comfort expected from GM's premium brand. Insurance companies didn't care about leather seats or sound deadening. They saw the Stage 1 badge and immediately raised rates. This sleeper looked respectable but ran like a demon. The Stage 1 package centered around Buick's massive 455 cubic inch V8. Officially rated at 360 horsepower, laughably conservative, the engine produced an earth-moving 510 pound-feet of torque at just 2,800 RPM. That torque figure represented the highest of any production muscle car, period. Buick underrated the horsepower intentionally to avoid insurance scrutiny, but magazine testers knew better. Dyno testing suggested real output exceeded 400 horsepower, maybe closer to 425. With either a 4-speed manual or the excellent turbo-hydromatic 3-speed automatic, the GSX Stage 1 could demolish the quarter mile in 13.38 seconds at 105.5 miles per hour. Motor Trend called it the quickest American production car they'd ever tested. That wasn't hype, that was fact. The GSX embarrassed Hemis, LS6 Chevelle, and Boss Mustangs with brutal consistency. What made the Stage 1 devastating was its power delivery. That massive torque hit hard and early, overwhelming tires at virtually any speed. First gear became a smoke show. Second gear required caution. Third gear still broke traction if you weren't careful. This wasn't a car. This was controlled chaos, wrapped in Buick refinement. Insurance companies eventually caught on. Early GSX buyers secured reasonable rates because insurers underestimated Buick's performance credentials. But after magazine tests confirmed the GSX's dominance, premiums skyrocketed. The Stage 1 designation became as feared as any Hemi badge, triggering automatic rate increases across the industry. Production stayed limited by design. Buick built only 678 GSX models in 1970, split between Saturn Yellow and Apollo White. Roughly 488 came with the Stage 1 package. Each one represented Buick's finest hour, a muscle car that proved luxury brands could build the fastest street cars in America. Today, a genuine Stage 1 GSX commands six-figure prices, recognition finally matching its historical significance. Number 3, 1970 Dodge Challenger RT Hemi. Dodge entered the pony car wars late but entered strong. The Challenger arrived for 1970, riding Chrysler's E-body platform, sharing bones with Plymouth's Barracuda. When Dodge dropped the legendary 426 Hemi into the Challenger, they created something extraordinary, a perfectly balanced muscle car that combined aggressive styling with straight-line savagery. Insurance companies took one look at the Hemi badge and immediately raised the rates to punishing levels. The 426 Hemi displaced 7 liters and breathed through dual 4-barrel Carter carburetors. Officially rated at 425 horsepower, the engine made considerably more in reality. Chrysler underrated Hemi engines to reduce insurance scrutiny, but everyone knew the truth. Real output likely exceeded 475 horsepower at the flywheel, with torque numbers that overwhelmed dyno equipment. Paired with a 4-speed manual and Dana 60 rear end, the Hemi Challenger could blast through the quarter mile in roughly 13.6 seconds at over 100 miles per hour. Those numbers put it among the quickest production cars available, trailing only the most exotic offerings from Chevrolet and Buick. On the street, the Hemi Challenger was pure intimidation, its deep exhaust note and aggressive stance warning competitors to stay clear. Insurance companies despised the Hemi designation. That badge represented maximum performance. Race-bred engineering applied to street cars. Young buyers faced premium increases of 300% or more, with many carriers refusing coverage entirely. The Hemi transformed car ownership from affordable to financially crippling, pricing most enthusiasts out of the market. What made the Challenger special was its styling. Dodge designers created one of the best-looking muscle cars ever, with long hood proportions, aggressive fender flares, and a wide, planted stance. The Challenger looked fast, sitting still, and the Hemi version amplified that presence with functional hood scoops, heavy-duty suspension, and wider rubber. This was automotive artwork that just happened to run mid-13s. Production stayed limited for 1970. Dodge built fewer than 400 Hemi Challengers, split between hardtops and convertibles. Each one cost serious money. The Hemi option added nearly $900 to the base price, and insurance nearly doubled that expense. Those who could afford it got one of Mopar's finest achievements, a muscle car that balanced beauty with brutal performance. Number 2, 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. Plymouth's Barracuda had always lived in Mustang's shadow, but for 1970, everything changed. The third-generation Cuda arrived on Chrysler's E-body platform, sharing mechanical components with Dodge's Challenger while carving its own distinct identity. When Plymouth added the legendary 426 Hemi option, they created something transcendent. Insurance companies understood immediately. This wasn't just another muscle car, this was a street-legal race car that would bankrupt young drivers. The 426 Hemi represented Mopar's ultimate weapon, 7 liters of hemispherical-headed fury, breathing through dual Carter 4-barrel carburetors. Officially rated at 425 horsepower, the engine made far more in reality. Dyno testing suggested outputs approaching 500 horsepower. Torque peaked at 490 pound-feet, numbers that overwhelmed transmissions and rear ends with casual regularity. With a 4-speed manual or torque flight automatic backing the Hemi, the Cuda could demolish the quarter mile in 13.5 seconds at 105 miles per hour. Those numbers put it among the quickest production cars ever built, faster than Ferraris and Corvettes, costing twice as much. On the street, the Hemi Cuda was utterly dominant, its combination of power and traction making it nearly unbeatable. Insurance companies hated everything about the Hemi Cuda. The Hemi badge triggered automatic premium increases. The Cuda's aggressive styling, functional shaker hood scoop, bold graphics, wide stance, advertised its performance credentials. Young drivers faced impossible choices: buy the dream car and go broke paying insurance, or settle for something tamer and live with regret. What made the Cuda special was its completeness. Plymouth didn't just drop a big engine into a pretty body. They engineered the car properly with heavy-duty suspension, massive brakes, and serious cooling systems. The Cuda felt like it belonged together, not cobbled from parts bins. This was thoughtful muscle, performance with purpose. Production stayed microscopic for 1970. Plymouth built only 666 Hemi Cudas that year, a number that couldn't be coincidence. Split between hardtops and convertibles, manual and automatic transmissions, each one represented Mopar's finest work. Today, a genuine Hemi Cuda commands seven-figure auction prices, recognition finally matching the car's legendary status. Number 1. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6. Some muscle cars were fast, some were powerful, some were beautiful. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6 was all of that and more. This wasn't just another big block Chevrolet. This was the pinnacle, the absolute summit of the muscle car era, the most powerful production car Detroit ever built. Insurance companies took one look at the specifications and simply refused to write policies. This car represented everything they feared, everything they fought against, everything that made the muscle car era dangerous and glorious. The LS6 454 displaced 7.4 liters of pure American fury, rated at 450 horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 500 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 RPM. The engine made more power than any other production car of its time, but those numbers told only half the story. Chevrolet built the LS6 with solid lifters, 11.25-to-1 compression, forged aluminum pistons, and an 800 CFM Holley carburetor feeding rectangular port cylinder heads. This was race car hardware and showroom trim, backed by either the bulletproof Turbo Hydromatic 400 or the legendary Muncie M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed manual. The LS6 Chevelle could annihilate the quarter mile in 13.44 seconds at 108.17 miles per hour. Those numbers, verified by multiple magazine tests, made it the quickest production car available. Nothing touched it. Not Hemis, not Boss Mustangs, not GSX Buicks. The LS6 stood alone at the summit. 0 to 60 arrived in just 6 seconds flat. Brutal acceleration that left passengers pinned to their seats. CarCraft magazine recorded an even more impressive 13.12 at 107 miles per hour with slightly different gearing. The LS6 didn't just win drag races, it humiliated the competition. Trap speeds told the real story of this engine's dominance. While other muscle cars struggled to break 105 miles per hour, the LS6 consistently hit 108. That extra speed represented genuine horsepower advantage, not just favorable gearing or lighter weight. The engine's torque curve was equally impressive, delivering massive thrust from 3,000 RPM all the way to redline. Fuel economy was predictably abysmal, with most owners reporting single-digit miles per gallon during spirited driving. But nobody bought an LS6 to save gas. They bought it to dominate everything on four wheels. What made the LS6 special wasn't just straight-line speed. This engine delivered power everywhere, from idle to redline. It idled rough enough to rattle trim pieces, but settled into a smooth, menacing lope. Plant your right foot, and all 450 horses arrived simultaneously. Overwhelming tires and common sense in equal measure. The LS6 required respect. It demanded skill. It punished mistakes. Insurance companies viewed the LS6 as uninsurable. That 454 displacement triggered automatic denials. The SS badge indicated high performance. Combined with the LS6's reputation, spread quickly through drag strips and magazine tests. Insurers had no choice but to raise premiums to astronomical levels or refuse coverage entirely. Young buyers simply couldn't afford to own the car, even if they could afford to buy it. Styling made the LS6 Chevelle immediately identifiable. That domed cowl induction hood, bold SS stripes, and planted stance announced serious intent. This wasn't a dress-up package. This was function over form. Performance without apology. The LS6 looked like exactly what it was. The baddest production car on American roads. Production stayed limited by fate and fortune. Chevrolet built only 4,475 LS6 engines in 1970, split between Chevelles, coupes, convertibles, and even a handful of El Caminos. Each one represented General Motors' final assault on the performance summit before regulations killed the dream. By 1971, the LS6 was gone, its compression slashed and power emasculated by new emissions requirements. Today, a genuine LS6 Chevelle commands astronomical prices at auction. Six-figure sales are common, with pristine examples exceeding $300,000. That's not nostalgia. That's recognition of historical significance. The LS6 Chevelle wasn't just the most powerful muscle car. It was the exclamation point on an entire era, the final proof that Detroit could build the fastest cars on Earth. These weren't just cars. They were rolling revolutions, financial gambles, and mechanical masterpieces that redefined what Detroit could build. Insurance companies hated them for good reason. They were fast, dangerous, and absolutely irresistible. Some sparked bankruptcies. Others launched legends. Every single one told a story about an era when horsepower mattered more than sense, when engineers built machines that scared actuaries and thrilled enthusiasts. Which of these insurance nightmares would you risk everything to own? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you love stories from the golden age of American muscle, hit subscribe for more legendary automotive history.